If the child version of yourself walked into the room right now, would you talk to them the way you currently talk to yourself? We can't grow with criticism, shame, and pressure as our soundtrack. Hashtag Real Talk by Real Talk _ Tasha. Hello and welcome to season 2, episode 34 of the Toya Talks Podcast. It's Tuesday, so you know it's a new episode. And if you are based in the UK, you know that we're on the second lockdown. We've just passed the first week. We're entering into the second week of lockdown. And I don't know, I feel a little anxious about this lockdown, just because I feel like in the UK, is it really going to end on the 2nd of December, or is it going to be extended? I think we're all sharing that level of anxiety, just not feeling like you're getting the full picture. In any case, we're currently in lockdown, second time at this radio, so we know what we're expecting, I think, anyway. If you follow me on Snapchat, then you know that I've been preparing for this anyway. I upgraded my Costco card from the first lockdown, and I've been making sure that we're stocked up here in my home, and new fridge, freezer and everything. Like, I really take it seriously, because I don't like the idea of being restricted. Therefore, if I'm going to be restricted, then of course I'm going to be comfortable. Also as well, I can't continue this episode without speaking about the US elections, where the new president of the United States of America is Joe Biden, and of course his vice president is Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. And I know that a lot of my friends in the States are really excited, are really happy with the result. And anyone who thought that Trump was going to go quietly, his whole tenure has not been quiet. So why do you think he's going to leave quietly? I'm going to be shocked if I see Trump at the inauguration. Like, I would be very surprised. But even if he's there as well, I don't think he's going to behave himself. But one thing about Donald Trump is that he's consistent. He's either consistently a twat, consistently a person that just talks for the sake of talking, but more importantly, he's just consistently being himself. And rightly or wrongly, I just don't expect him to be anybody other than himself. So the whole time he was the president, he still had his own Twitter handle that he was just tweeting anything. I felt like with Trump, he just felt like he was above the law. And what is going to be really interesting is to see how, investigations are conducted about him during his time as president. That's going to be really interesting. The fallout of that, of course, is going to be really interesting as well. But you guys really enjoyed the last episode of the Toya Talks podcast, which was Scramble For Power. And I really enjoyed delivering it to you guys. I think when people think about office politics, they don't necessarily think about the Scramble For Power and the mini coups that happen in the workplace as soon as there's movement at the top. So it was really good for me to deliver that episode to you guys. But there is a bit of a follow on as well. So you guys, I've spoken about David. If you want to know a bit more about David in the last episode, go ahead and have a listen. But remember, I said in the last episode, if this man steps on my toes, that's when I'm going to talk. And I knew he was going to step on my toes, but I just didn't know it would happen so quickly. And stepping on my toes, I mean, is when his stupidity and his need to be recognised by just chatting shit starts affecting my day job. And it did last week. And what I decided to do then is I sent an email to David, copying the director, and basically said to David, quite politely, quite professionally, next time you are going to have certain conversations that affect my contract, at least have the courtesy, or give me the courtesy of copying me in or having a conversation with me. You can't go ahead and make decisions about contracts that contractually you don't have the authority to make those calls, especially if you're not managing them. And I sent it off. And as I sent off that email, I didn't hear back from the director. But then David rang me, and he called me on you have Teams and Skype and stuff. I think he called me on Skype. And he was like, Toya, I want to talk to you about the email that you just sent. I was like, David, I've got 2 minutes. I've got a call. He said, well, I think that you are just, just taking it out of context. I think that you're very confused. As soon as he said very confused, I was like, okay, you know what? He's going to get it. He going to get it. because he called me, he looked for me. He didn't remember, he didn't respond to the email. He called me straight away. So that tells me a couple of things. It tells me, number one, you don't want an audit trail. Number two, you're highly embarrassed. And number three, you're acting off emotion. So if you're acting off emotion, like I've told you guys, there's no logic in emotion. I'ma get you. So then he said, I think you're really confused. I said, David, I'm going to say this once so that you can understand me. Don't ever gaslight me by telling me that I'm confused when it's very clear that you have done things that have affected the contract that I manage. Not that you manage, that I manage. And all I'm asking you to do is have the professional courtesy of including me or briefing me on the things that you do that directly affect the contract that I manage. That's all I'm asking. And he's like, well, I think we need to have a lengthy call. I'll put some time in your diary. I says, but that's just the point, David. You have too many conversations and not enough reflection. And I do not have the time or the mental ability to sit there and have a long drawn out conversation with you. So I've told you what it is, and that's it now. Move on. I've got a call. I have to go now. And he was just quiet. And I went on to my next call. So then the next day, the director sent me a message and asked to have a call with me. And in my head, I'm like, this is just like, at the end of the day, I expected it because obviously I copied her in the email. So I called her and she said to me, hey Toya, I saw your email. Is everything okay with your contract? I was like, yeah, everything's fine. Like I said, I just prefer that if David is having conversations, that he just includes the person that's managing the contract. She's like, yeah, totally. I completely understand it. She goes, no. Toya, it's because you tend to just get on with it. So when I saw the email, I just wanted to make sure that you was okay. I was like, yeah, I'm cool. I said, David called me afterwards. I just reiterated the contents of my email and we've moved on. So she was like, okay, cool, no problem. So I'm continuing with the week. And then I get a phone call on my personal mobile from the director again. And the director says to me, Toya, have you got a few minutes? I was like, yeah, of course. And she's like, I know that I spoke to you earlier in the week and you said that this was done. But David has called me and he's basically said to me that you, he called you and that you launched at him on the call. And, he just, communicated that to me. And I just wanted to find out from you, and she kept saying, and I was like, Deborah, I need to understand when you say the word launch, that's quite a provocative word. I said launched is akin to being aggressive. Launched is akin to being attacking somebody. And I don't understand how from my email, which was dealt with earlier in the week, that somebody can deduce from that then having a call would lead to a launching. And I was like, I would like to understand how this launch took place, because when he Skype called me, the camera wasn't on. The call lasted for 2 minutes and 56 seconds. And I know that because I've just called it up on my computer. I said, I think that David is having an attack of the ego. I think his ego was slightly made uncomfortable because he's being told something that he doesn't feel comfortable being told. He's being told this by a woman, a black woman, and I think that makes him slightly uncomfortable. I said, when he has used the word launching, I said, I take personal offense to that, because when you say I launched at you, what words could conjure up launching? What words did he say? When he said that to you, did you not ask him? She said, yes. And I said, well, what did he say? She goes, well, he didn't really answer. I said, well, I don't appreciate being accused of launching at anybody, because I don't launch, I discuss. And I said to her, I said, Deborah, I think next time it might be worth maybe having David on the call, because this conversation to me is more about kind of stroking David's ego, and I'm not in the business of that. So I suggest he pulls up his trousers and put his big boy jacket on and gets on with the work at hand. Because if he put this much energy into actually doing the work rather than canvassing support for his ego, I think there'd be a bit more of a collaborative approach. And Deborah just started laughing and she was like, you know what, Toya, I 100% knew that it was rubbish, but I wanted just you to know that that's what he said. Now, we ended the call, me and the overall boss, Deborah, and I had to go into a process of reflection because you learn from every situation. And what I learned from that is not only did I do my due diligence really well when it came to David, but more importantly, I am a big threat to him. Yeah, up until the point I sent the email, I've been really, really quiet. So he's never really considered me as anyone. And I genuinely think that when he got the email, he was shocked. How dare this black woman think she can send me this? Does she know who I am? And the fact is, I do know who you are. I've been watching you for the past how many weeks? Mouth almighty. Every meeting, you can't say a word without him interrupting or thinking he knows better. And in meetings, I haven't said anything. I've just literally observed. I've done nothing. Because I'm coming into an organization where I don't know how they work, right? I have all this knowledge and all this experience, but in order for me to put it into action, I need to understand the mechanism of how this organization works. This man hasn't been here long. He's been here 1 week more than me. But the way he carries on, and the real crazy thing is, the same director that he's calling, the same director that called me just to check that I was okay or whatever, is the same director that he is bitching about. I was accidentally sent an email. Yeah, accidentally sent an email. And on the email train, you can see him bashing our director. And I literally just put it in my burn folder. And I say accidentally because the person that sent it to me tried to recall it, but had already sent it to me. Yeah, you got to be careful what you write down. You got to be careful what you say. But more importantly, as a black woman working in an organisation, I'm very conscious of the stereotypes. We all are. But because I tell you something that you don't like, you've accused me of launching at you. So already now you've told me that you have an issue with me as a black woman. Of all the words you could have used to describe the conversation we had, you decided to use a very provocative term. Launched. She launched into me. It's like she came to attack me. She came to fight me. That's basically what you're saying. So when I then questioned what my director said to me, when my director then was answering me, you could tell she felt a bit silly about even placing the call because it was ridiculous. I'm a contract consultant. I've come in to manage a contract, and sometimes there's going to be difficult conversations, but it's about how it's had. I have mine out in the open. I'll have my conversations. I'll send the email. I'll copy the relevant people in. But David decided that he wanted to call me. That tells me a heck of a lot. It tells me all I need to know about him. And people like him don't really last long in organisations because they start to become unstuck and they become rumbled when other people around them realise that all he does is blow a lot of hot smoke in the air. He's an empty vessel and he makes the most noise. He's shocked at me because I haven't said nothing. And then the one time I do speak, he's like, bloody hell, she's got a voice. Yeah, I have a voice. I just use it when I need to. So as the days transpired, there was then like a massive call. When I say a massive call, there's quite a few people on the call. And David was on the call. And David was called upon on the call to answer a specific question about something because he'd been mouth almighty throughout the whole call and they were asking him a particular question and it was a stakeholder and it was quite like an important stakeholder and David was completely quiet. I had the answer, but I had to let him be humiliated on that call because he needed to realise that this whole call that you've been trying to lead, you're not a leader. We're all consultants, do you understand? I don't even think that David is a consultant. I don't even know what his role is. I don't even think he knows. So then I took my computer off mute and I addressed the audience and I said, hi, Toya here from so-and-so team. I was on the previous call where and I can inform you that XYZ. Oh, thank you so much, Toya, the chairperson. Thank you so much, Toya, for that information. That's really, really helpful. We appreciate it. David looked like a complete dickhead. A complete dickhead. And this is why I say, when you go into organizations, it's not about shouting the loudest. It's not about filling space by just talking and hoping that it's something that you say will be right. That's not what it's about. You have to be comfortable enough in yourself and in what you bring to the table, because that will allow you to find the humility to actually absorb the information that you need to, understanding that you don't know everything. Look, I'm the new kid on the block at the end of the day. But when it comes to contract consultancy and contract management, nah, I'm not the new kid on the block, honey. I've been here. I've been being here. But I don't have anything to prove. I have nothing. But someone like David, who I've been observing, he feels like he has something to prove. That shows me there's an inadequacy within himself. Yeah? And when I sent the email to my boss and basically addressed David in it, and it was addressed to David, copying in my boss, from his perspective, shit, she's rumbled me. Shit. Toya actually has a fucking voice box. Jesus, I didn't see her come in. That's what she launched at me. That's what that crap was about. We're talking about a grown man in his mid-40s, by the way. And like, he's so, like, now this is why I get petty, because you know we do the petty shit here as well. He is so annoying. Like, he literally came on the call. He came on one call and he's got these new glasses. He looks like a fucking Point Dexter. Came on with these glasses, and I think he thinks if he wears his glasses, it'll make him more intelligent. So he chats shit and looks stupid at the same time. Yeah. And I really don't know what it is, and I need to figure it out, like what it is about him that feels like he has to continue this charade, because it's a charade. It's only going to last for so long. Like, he's becoming unstuck. You know, a call that we had today, a simple call, you ask a simple question, you can't answer it. You just chat. Then you've gone to the director to say, I launched at you. Like, what next, babe? And sometimes it's just people like that. You know, I feel like if somebody is acting the fool, but they don't affect my immediate work, I don't really care. Do what you want to do. But as soon as you affect my work and therefore affect the way that I'm perceived because of the work, oh, honey, no. I can meet you where you are. Oh, yeah. And then he looks like the Grim Reaper as well, because on the calls, you know, when these Oyibo people, they'll start using words like, yes, and the adequacy of the adequacy, and the gada. You know, we'll just be using big words. All his teeth will be showing. All 152 of them will be showing. And then afterwards, he'll do this side smile, looking like the Grim Reaper. He scares the shit out of me. I'm not looking at him like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Always in your conservatory. All the time, you've got to be in your conservatory. Why don't you want to go in your house? You know why? He wants to show everybody he's got a conservatory. Because every time he comes on the call and he introduces himself, he always introduces his conservatory. Yeah, he wants to show that, look at me. People like that, you got a problem. People like that, you've got something to hide. There's an inadequacy inside of, like, there's an inadequacy about you, and you're using all of these things to camouflage. And I see right through you. I'm not here for the bullshit. He just chats shit. If you ask him one question about a contract, he will even be confused. So, and I think he hates the fact that I'm not stroking his ego. He hates it. And this is that, you know, like misogynoir, like you can see it, and it's just so, it's irritating. But I just wanted to share that bit with you, because I feel like when I was speaking about the Scramble for Power, you know, in the progression of his personality, I thought it's important that you can understand that where I had to step in, because I felt as though, you know, at the end of the day, you can't go through an organization and say nothing for too long. You know, there will come a point where you have to speak up. It's just the way you do it. And my director, honestly, I think my director had a newfound respect for me as well, because up until that point, in her eyes, I just haven't spoken. She don't know what I'm thinking. I'm just doing the work, but she's not, you know. And I think on that call with her, she realized, oh shit, you know, Toya's really on the ball here. And she said it to me. Like on the call, she was like, yeah, she goes, Toya, you know what? you're really on it when it comes to like your contracts and everything. Like, honestly, like I've got a lot of respect for you. And she said it. You know, I think the only thing that disappointed me with her was that, why are you coming to me with this? Like, I'm a consultant, you're paying me to be here. But then I feel like this is part of the politics, isn't it? Where you're trying to like please everybody. But as a manager, you can't please everybody. You can't be a people pleaser and be a manager. It's not going to work. And what she's not understanding is the same David that she's calling me about is the chief head conspirator of the coup d'etat. Coup d'etat. Coup d'etat. That's what it's a coup. It's coming. Yeah, I'm a Nigerian woman. As an African woman, if I don't know what a coup is, in African history, talk less of what's happening in the UK here in the workplace. But guys, it gets better. Well, I say it gets better. It doesn't get better. It gets worse. The familiarity that comes from people in an organization is crazy. And some of that familiarity comes from this video conference calls. Now, remember, I'm not from this generation of video conference calls. And I think that we've kind of just been plunged into it because of COVID. So I have a desk area, and on my desk area, if you're on a video call with me, you will see like my makeup brushes, right? But yeah, you'd see like the side of my makeup brushes. So I was having meetings, and to me, like, I'm just focused on the task at hand. I'm not realizing my makeup brushes. Anyway, long story short, I'm having a meeting with this particular woman. And, you know, I'm very professional about the meeting and everything. And she says to me, "Are you a makeup artist?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Oh, because of all your makeup brushes." I was so embarrassed. But I was more embarrassed because when I look at the makeup brushes, I didn't think it was really that much of a bigger deal. Like, especially because, like, I'm clearly in my room. Like, do you understand? But the familiarity that passed through that comment was mad. Do you know what this woman said to me? "Guys, you're not even going to be ready for this." She goes, "Oh, why did you cut your hair?" I said, "Sorry." She goes, "You know your hair? Why did you cut your hair?" I was like, "Because I wanted to." And she goes, "Oh, you know, some of these people here, they'll think you're an ex-cancer patient. You've got to be careful." I'm not even going to lie to you. There's not a lot of things in a workplace that could shock me. That fucking shocked me. It shocked me on many levels. But before I get onto that, let me finish the story. So she said to me, so I said to her, "Well, first of all, I'm really proud of my hair." Okay. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't have to justify my crown. This is how I choose to wear my crown. I know I have people in my family who have had cancer, passed away from cancer, so I take that quite seriously. But if somebody thinks I'm an ex-cancer patient, that's a matter for them. That's not going to change the way I cut my hair or if I cut my hair. This is just what it is. And people have to just accept it. If my hair or my crown makes somebody uncomfortable, or they think that I've suffered from cancer, God forbid, that's a matter for them. I said, "Anyway, can we move on?" Guys, ordinarily, yeah, I'd have a clap back. But you know why I didn't even have one? Because deep down in the pit of my stomach, I was really disappointed. And I'll tell you why. Because it's a fellow black woman. Like, for me, a woman's crown, a black woman's crown, is so significant on so many levels. So for her to say that to me and be so familiar, so you've started from my makeup brushes and you've moved. So basically, you don't want to say this. You've always wanted to say this to me. And in my head, I thought, not all skin folk's king folk, first of all. And I've told you this, guys, before. But you got to remember, I'm still the new kid on the block here. I'm still trying to figure people out. You can go into organizations and there are a lot more people in organizations who are just there to provoke you, just to get a reaction. And I'm realizing that because I've gone in there really quiet. Now, ordinarily, I'll go into organizations quiet anyway, but I am extremely quiet here because I'm just trying to figure shit out. Do you understand? I'm delivering, but I'm just very like removed. And I feel like these people are doing certain things to provoke me. If you want me to be real, I actually feel like they're doing these things to provoke me, to provoke a reaction. And each time I'm being provoked, they're not getting the reaction. They don't know what to do. Because I think she thought I was just going to like flip out or offer some long drawn out explanation. I'm not doing that, you know. No. I'm not doing that. And I genuinely believe that when you get to a certain period in your personal life of just confidence in who you are on a personal level, I feel like then when you go into organizations, you still go in as yourself. And I go in confident, but I don't need to go in loudly confident. I know who Toya is. So no one can come to me and tell me about me. But when you attack a woman's crown, that is so personal. Now, had that been a man, I think I would have responded a bit differently. But because it was a fellow black woman, I was so disappointed. Because a white woman would never, ever, she wouldn't even try it. A white woman, the fragility of a white woman means that they can't talk about that because they're so afraid of being labelled a racist. But when a black woman speaks about your crown or talks in the manner in which this woman done, what is that? It ain't jealousy. No, do you know what it is? It's, I believe that that's the effects of a white woman being institutionalized in white institutions and made to know or made to think that we need to go under the radar unnoticed. And I feel like that black woman felt offended by my bold crown, because by cutting my hair off, shaving it off, it felt like a statement to her. And she felt like I'm making this statement, not just of me, but on behalf of her. And that's why she felt a certain way. And that's why she said it to me. My bald head is not a statement. My bald head is an exercise of my freedom and my ability to do what the fuck I want to do. Do you understand? I don't need permission to cut my hair, you know? It's time before and people who follow me on my Snapchat, I used to wear wigs a lot. Like, I had so many wigs. Like, literally, I've got pictures. I look so different. And when I first shaved my hair off, I loved it. But then so Saturday, Sunday, I'd be bald. And on Monday, I put a wig on. And do you know how uncomfortable that became? Because sometimes I just wanted to rip off my wig in the middle of the office. It was just uncomfortable. Sometimes the office would be so hot, I'll be itching my head. So as we went into lockdown, I just decided that, you know what? I'm no longer going to wear a wig. I'm going to dye my hair because I love dyeing my hair, and I'm going to wear my hair short until I decide what I want to do with my natural hair. That is literally the long and short of it. And I just said to myself, if I'm going to go into a new organisation, I'm going in with my bald head. That's what I'm going in as. Do you understand? Because if I go in with a wig and then the next day come with bald heads, you know, or you bald people, they're confused. They don't understand what's going on. They'll think you're going through something because they can't deal with that level of change. But I'm not here to accommodate for the fragility of white people. I'm just not here for that. So for me, I'm going in as I am. And I've decided to go into the office bald. And I love like seeing my cheekbones. I love putting on makeup and seeing my hair just as beautiful, my crown just elegant. But when that black woman said to me, people are going to think I'm an ex-cancer patient. No, that's just what you think I look like. Either you think I look like that, or you're trying to put some level of doubt in my mind because you're not comfortable with how my crown looks. Because because some people genuinely think that a bald head and a black woman is a statement. It's, for me, it's not, you know. For me, it is not. But when a white woman cuts her hair off, so Sinead O'Connor, for instance, that's just normal. That's normal. No one said nothing. There's other white women that cut off their hair, and it's a fashion statement. Or they cut off their hair and say, oh, this is a nice change. But as soon as a black woman does something that's different to what people consider the norm, that is a statement. It's a negative statement. And I'm done with that shit. I'm done. So the next person that comes, and do you know what the crazy thing is? Any person who's asked me why I cut my hair has always been black. Always. Earlier in the year, a black man asked me that. Yep, a black man asked me that. And he was like, oh, I look so different with short hair. Why did I cut it? And I was like, you look so different with all this weight you've added. Why are you so fat? And I blocked the person. Yeah, because you want to ask me that question. Me too, I need to ask you something. But being the new person in an office, whether you are a fixed term contract, whether you are perm, whether you're a consultant, whether you're any type of interim, whatever it may be, always comes with a level of, I think, bedding in, innit? People are trying to test your boundaries and work you out. It often feels like an initiation, but people really do like walk on the thin line of disrespect. It's disrespectful. It is. But you know something? I always say this. When you go into a workplace with a strategy, and I keep telling you people this, like, when you go in with a strategy, you first and foremost create your own support system, because you already have your strategy. That is your safety net. Your strategy is the support system. Let me tell you what my strategy is in this organization. My strategy is, number one, I'm developing my contract consultancy skills. Yeah. And I'm working in different areas of contracts. And these type of areas are quite niche. So I've dealt with them like pervasively, but these particular areas now are so niche that actually it's going to give me the edge. After I've worked here, I am telling you right now, I can literally, the world is my oyster, because I've already come from Goldman Sachs and PricewaterhouseCoopers. Do you understand? But I felt like as a contract consultant, there is a roundedness that I needed, that although on the surface it looks like I'm well-rounded, there's some things I feel like if you develop it a bit more, Toya, I genuinely think that your premium rate will become even more premium. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? That's number one. My second strategy is I need to network in this organization, because I feel like there's a lot of people that have worked in similar organizations that I've worked in before, but it's always great to kind of network with people. In this particular case, this is where I'm going to get it. Number three, this organization is going to test the boundaries of my ability to be a contract consultant. And I mean that on a technical level. And I have acquired skills in the last few weeks that, to be quite honest with you, I feel so grateful for. Because as I am, thinking about settling down and having a family, going on maternity, I want to go on maternity leave on a real massive high in my career. Because if I go on maternity leave on a high and stay abreast of the changing legislation within contracts, I promise you coming back will be a breeze. And I feel like coming back will not only just be a breeze, but I genuinely think that coming back, I will have my pick of opportunities. So my strategy is really covered in the fact that I know I'm going to be on maternity soon. Do you understand? So I'm already forward planning and forward thinking. So whilst I may look like I'm the new kid on the block to these people, honey, I've been doing this. I've been here. David doesn't know he's not even taking the time to understand or know who I am. I know everything about this guy. And he's nothing to me. He will introduce himself as a senior consultant. What makes you senior, brother? This one where you haven't even sat your SATs. This one where you haven't even scored one C in your A-levels. What is this that you're coming here to do? You're sitting in front of me, law degree, master's holder, SIPS holder. I've come from the ranks of Goldman Sachs, PricewaterhouseCoopers, but to name a few. And you're coming here playing mouth almighty and Billy Big Bollocks. I'm just looking at him like, you're nothing to me. But I promise you, some of these organizations that I've just mentioned to you where I used to work has often for me been the backdrop of a training ground. So there's nothing that I haven't seen. But what surprises me is the boldness of this black woman. 100%. Outside of that, listen, I've worked with investment bankers. Listen, you do not know what Too Fast, Too Furious is until you've worked with investment bankers. Yes, as a contract manager in an investment bank, until you work in investment bank, you haven't seen nothing. They will talk to you like you're some type of trash. You literally have to tell them, it's not me you want to do this with, brother. Like, you know, sometimes they watch Channel 4 and they feel like they're on Top Boy. So they'll come and do Top Boy in the office. Nah, it wasn't me. No. I'm telling you, I've already started my burn folder here. Like, because I know everyone's mad. I know everyone's mad. And sometimes you have it though. Sometimes you have it. My last contract where I was, it wasn't that they were mad, that people were just afraid. They were afraid to make mistakes. They were afraid to do this place. Everyone's just mad. They're just mad. And I have to be my own support system. But I know what I'm covered in. And I'm covered in the blood of Jesus, first and foremost. Then I'm covered in my objective for this place. Do you understand what I'm saying? And sometimes it is difficult and it does get lonely. I'm not going to lie. Being the new kid on the block gets very lonely, especially when you see that people have formulated, you know, their own little cliques, or, you know, they start using all these acronyms, la bac, la sac, gua, 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 gua. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what the fuck is this? But you know what I do? I write those acronyms down. I write them down. And during the course of your employment, you then begin to understand what those acronyms mean. And sometimes I'm just shameless. I just say, excuse me, what does this mean? Depending on my audience. Do you understand? But this is like an interesting being the new kid on the block during a pandemic. It has a different nuance to it. Because people are really they're just jumping to conclusions about who you are because you've got a couple of makeup brushes. You guys know I'm no fucking makeup artist. These makeup brushes I've just acquired over a period of a few years. So I was really blessed and really lucky that I said to my partner, I was like, listen, I need to get a bigger desk. Because the desk I was using was like a beauty desk. I was like, no, I need a bigger desk. And I want to get some shelves. And he was like, cool. So I was able to kind of like get some shelves and stuff and move some of my makeup brushes as well. So now when I switch my camera on, you don't know where the fuck I am. I look like I'm in someone's office. You don't know where I am. And I feel like that was definitely and interesting, because I don't look at people's houses and just automatically assume, like, if I saw a couple of guitars, I'm not going to assume you're a musician. Maybe you like collecting guitars, but I don't feel comfortable to just say that to you. That who am I? Like, we're in a professional environment, but I definitely believe that with people, especially working from home, it's breeding a level of familiarity in people's minds. And I just definitely think that we just need to be a bit cautious and a bit mindful of that and how you deal with people and interact with people. After I put that woman in her place about telling me I look like an ex-cancer patient, I've had other calls with her. And she's just very like, she don't know how to take me. Because she realised she put her foot in it now, innit? So she's trying to crack these jokes and not funny. And my face is just stoic. I'm not giving her nothing. Because I realise now that you don't even have boundaries for your own professionalism. So I need to put boundaries for the both of us. Yeah. I kind of mentioned it before about feeling like it's an initiation. And I definitely feel like I'm being tested. Like almost like my resilience is being tested. And, you know, sometimes it can get quite exhausting. Like, why should you go somewhere and be working somewhere and be made to feel like you have to constantly engage and put this effort into just asserting yourself? And this is why when I get asked the question, you know, like from somebody, and I remember recently I was asked it, that someone messaged me and said, you know what, I'm very much a quiet person. This person was saying they're very quiet. How do they assert themselves without participating in the office politics? And it's like, well, already you're part of it, the office politics, by virtue of the fact that you're working there. But you have to assert yourself. You can't, I don't think you can ever get away with it, with not asserting yourself. You can't want to be successful and not assert yourself, because there's going to be times where you're going to have to kind of put people in their place, like what I did to David. There are going to be people who are going to push your boundaries, and you're going to have to kind of like learn the social skills to manage those people. And I think a lot of those social skills that you learn comes from working in different places. It comes from your own social background, like your friendship groups, but more importantly, it comes from also understanding that the construct of the workplace isn't built for Black women. So we are, as Black women, having to develop our personalities to be able to, I say personalities and our work personality, to accommodate for this kind of strange construct that we're a part of, but hasn't been made for us, if that makes sense. I will definitely say that last week I was just exhausted because I felt like, I definitely felt like, is there something that I'm doing? And I know it's nothing I'm doing. I know I'm just being my diligent self, and I'm just kind of keeping a bit to myself and just watching things develop. And I think some people are just not used to that. You know, some people want to provoke you to see how far you can go, or to get a flavor of your personality. And I just think in a professional environment, that's just not where you're going to do it. I definitely think kind of remote working, which I have to add, I love remote working. I don't like people already. I don't want to have to accommodate for the fragility of white people on the DLR. I don't want to have to deal with that. I do not want to have to be exhausted getting into work because I'm having to cuss people because they're stretching their armpits over my head. I don't want to be squashed like a packet of sardines. I'm happy to be working from home. Even today, I remember like I woke up this morning and I just didn't want to be at work. I was like, oh God, I just really want a day to myself. And I thought, no, Toya, you're working from home. You literally get in the shower, get changed, and roll on over to your desk. Like, come on, you know. And I soldiered through, and I was happy that I, you know, kind of went into work and stuff. And I think maybe it's the residual effect of just being exhausted from last week, and I felt like I just needed an extra day. But yeah, I'm enjoying working from home. But I definitely think that working from home, working remotely, brings another dimension because everybody's working from home. So ordinarily in the workplace, people would be more familiar, say like in the kitchen, you know, people would have this small talk or try to have small talk with you. I guess it's a bit more magnified because we're all at home and therefore people are being familiar over a camera, and that in itself is quite intrusive. I did purchase from Amazon, you know, the privacy camera thing that you like, I don't know how to describe it, but you can put it over your camera and you can lock it and open it. Yeah, I got one of those. Yeah, because sometimes you can like log on to video conferencing and it will put you straight on video. Whereas with my thing, if I close it, even if it just puts me straight on video, you still can't see me because I've closed it. I've got to open it again. It's like a little blind. It's brilliant. You guys know what I'm talking about. I got it from Amazon. It's like $1.99 or something. But yeah, I just wanted to like, share my experiences of being the new kid on the block, because I don't want people to think that because I have a lot of experience in my field, then it kind of excludes me from having kind of the new kid on the block experience or the new person at work experience. I think irrespective of how much experience that you have, when you go into a new place, you are the new person, and you're the new person until the new person comes. And even then you're probably still the new person until the new person comes. And being the new person can be difficult. People have established relationships and ways of working, and you know, people make up acronyms for that specific organization, and that can make you feel very ostracized. I'm not gonna lie, it can. But my thing is, I'm allowed to use the newbie card for as long as possible. So I'm going to ask as many questions as I like. I'm going to make as many notes, and I can be whoever I want to be when I go into these organizations because they don't know me. So if I want to be as quiet as a church mouse, that's exactly what I'm going to do. What I will not do is be a David and just beat my chest and just chat shit for the sake of it, and then become unstuck when people ask me basic elementary questions. And I think it's a balance between professionalism and a balance of kind of dealing with hypersensitive personalities like David. Like, I'm not going to accommodate for white fragility. That's one thing I'm going to say that is like a blanket rule in my entire life, across my work and my personal life. I'm not going to accommodate for white fragility, because as soon as you do that, you become complicit in protecting racism. Because when you start calling out white fragility and you start shaking the foundation of it, you force oppressive, racist white people to confront some of their prejudices. But when you protect their fragility, you protect them from having to confront some of their stereotypes and prejudice. I'm telling you, when you say to a black woman who was talking to you professionally that they launched on you, that's rooted in racism. I'm telling you right now, he would not say that a white woman launched at him. No. I'm a black woman. And I'm not just any black woman. I'm a black woman who shaved their hair off. That must be like alarm bells in his head. It must be. But I'm not doing it. I'm not. He's not going to gaslight me. No way. How can you sit here and say, oh, I think it's in your head or whatever he said? You're not going to gaslight me. It's not in my head. It's what happened. So it's also in your head too, because it happened. Stupid. Anyway, guys, hopefully that's helped, you know, especially if you've been in an organization for a really long time and you're looking for a new job, and sometimes you're just intimidated by the process of being a new person somewhere. I just want you to know that everyone in every workplace was new at one time. And I think it's important that we realize that. It doesn't matter if the person's been there for 10 years. 10 years before they were there, they started. They were the new person. And it's okay to feel awkward. It's also okay to feel like you don't fit. It's also okay to feel a level of anxiety. And that's why, like, I try and bring as much honesty as possible to these podcast episodes. I'm just really just myself. And I think that's what a lot of you resonate with and a lot of you can identify with, because I feel like there is a vulnerability in being yourself, and there's a strength in being yourself as well. Like, I definitely see the strength in my vulnerability, especially when I had to sit there and scope out this episode. I had to ask myself, Toya, at any one time during the course of the last how many weeks, how did you feel? I did feel anxious. I did feel uncomfortable. I felt like there was one day where I felt like, I don't know what I add here. Like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, do they know I'm here? You know, I felt all those things, but now I kind of feel like, you know what, Toya? Like, you're good at what you do, so you'll find your feet. And that's exactly what's happening. I'm just finding my feet. I'm finding my way. I think, like, with David, there was a fork in the ground where he realised, actually, do you know what? I acknowledge the fact that not only is this girl got a brain in her head, but she's actually doing the do. And now suddenly I get included in all these meetings, all that, all the stuff he was trying to ice me out of, and it's just dumb, you know. But I'm keeping my eye on David. I'm sure there'll be more tales of David and his stupidity to come. But as always, we've got a couple of dilemmas, and I want to get through a couple of them as well. And then I want to go on to some recommendations of TV shows I'm watching that I think you guys are going to really, really enjoy. And I really want to talk about them on the podcast as well, in terms of navigating work as well. And a lot of kind of the things that happen in our personal life that often affect the way we navigate work as Black women. So yeah, we'll talk about some of those TV shows a little later. So I got a dilemma from a young lady who actually came through on my Instagram DMs. You guys know, like, I prefer you to email hello@toyatalks.com. But when I read it, I felt very compelled to respond. And also as well, I will play my responses because I sent her voice note responses. So I thought that would be a bit of a different way of doing a dilemma for the podcast. And I thought you guys would really like it. So let me just read her dilemma and then I'll play you my voice note responses. Since 2018, when I changed my career to a QS, and completing my MSc, I've had more than 20 interviews. I have never got an offer. I get interviews all the time, but no offer. Since then, I've been doubting myself. I am literally scared and cry all the time, whereby some interviews I just don't turn up because of the anxiety. Sometimes negative things, such as comparisons that my mum says to me, play in my head, like, look at your age mates. Kiss my teeth. To me, honestly, I am at my lowest, but I just know God has a purpose for my life. So then I responded to this young lady.
You know what? I don't know how long you've been following me for, if you follow me on Snapchat, but I resonate 100% with you, especially like the whole mother comparison thing. I have a very awful relationship with my mom, and the comparison thing has caused me anxiety, conflict of understanding self, and a few other issues. So I've been in therapy for a few years now anyway, and I therefore understand how it now is resonating in your work in terms of like interviews and stuff like that. But there's something I'm going to tell you. Unless you are mentally ready to receive a job offer, the energy that you're creating around you will not cultivate a job offer. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You already tell yourself that you're not going to get a job. You do. because of that self-doubt that has been planted by your mum. I just want to let you know that this period is difficult enough. And as a Black woman, we go through a lot at work, but also as well, we have been triggered, and the level of trauma that we've had this year doesn't help anxiety. It adds to it. Plus the anxiety you feel because you've been getting a load of job interviews but haven't had any offers. I'm going to put something to you, and I hope that you take it in the spirit in which I'm giving it to you. I think you don't resonate confidence because of the anxiety. I'm not blaming you. But when you don't resonate that confidence, people that are in a position to offer you a job aren't even confident if, number one, you want the job, or confident enough to trust you with the job. You have to exude confidence, and often you even have to fake it. Even if you don't feel it. And I'm going to say this to you. You have to speak into existence and really believe the things that you want to exist in your life. And I understand that anxiety is not like a switch that you can switch on and off. I have my own anxiety about certain things. But I know how much you really, really want this job. And I know how much you really, really want a role. But you have to really now think about how you're allowing your anxiety to dominate you.
So hopefully you guys heard that really clearly. I was playing it off my phone, and her response back to me was amazing. And she said, Toya, you hit the nail on the head. I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm not resonating that confidence, and therefore I'm not kind of allowing people to see that I'm a safe pair of hands, if you like, or I'm the right person for the job, because I'm already showing that doubt. And one thing I'm also going to say to people is, it's a really difficult period to be looking for a job. So if you're getting a load of interviews, clearly your CV is doing really well. But when you can't make that transition from a job from a interview to an offer, if you can't make that, then something has happened in between the CV and the rejection for a role, and that is the interview. Something's happening in that interview. Now, you guys know I do the interview masterclass on the toyatalks.com website. I talk about interviews. I don't just talk about face-to-face interviews. I talk about remote interviews. I've had quite a few of them now. And ordinarily, even before lockdown, I was having some interviews which were, remote interviews, and partly because I'm a consultant, so it makes sense. But I talk about the dynamic of an interview and kind of the things that you do are not even conscious of, and the things that you should be doing and you don't do, and the questions that you should ask to help support you guys during the interview process. But this young lady's been really honest, and that's what I love about all of your dilemmas, is that you're really, really honest with me, and it helps me then help you. So now this young lady has I definitely felt when she responded with her voice note, which obviously I don't want to play, because obviously people who send in dilemmas are anonymous, but when she responded back to me, you could hear her voice pick up. She sounded a lot more comforted by the fact that I've given her a new way of looking at it. And I definitely feel like anxiety it's horrible, because unless you've actually experienced it, you don't understand it. And until I experienced anxiety, I didn't really believe anxiety exists. I just equated it to nervousness. But anxiety is that overwhelming emotion. And it could be that I really want this job so badly. And then it's more than just nerves. It's a constant feeling of inadequacy. It's a form of anxiety as well, or a fear of the unknown. So yeah, that's how I responded to that dilemma. And I thought it'd be a bit unconventional to the normal way I respond. That's why I played it from my phone, the voice note. But I'm wishing that young Black queen the best of luck in her job interviews. And I really hope that my advice resonates with you. You're able to use it and convert all those interviews into several job offers, so that you are in a position to have a pick of what job you want to accept. But also as a reassuring way of reassuring you that not only are you an amazing black woman, but you're an amazing black woman that can participate in an interview process and, despite the anxiety or anxiousness, be able to be offered several jobs where you then have the choice which job you want to take. So hopefully that helps. Now, moving on to the next dilemma. Hi Toya, I just wanted to thank you for doing Toya Talks Podcast. You really could have kept your experiences to yourself, but you've been made into a vessel for us black women. Heart. I do have a question. Would you ever decline a pay rise? I've been given a £200 pay rise, whilst my colleagues have been given a $2,200 to $4,600 pay rise to make us all on the same pay. Should I just be grateful during this period? Now, I thought that was a really, really good question because I've never been asked this before. And also as well, it's kind of, this question is interesting because number one, we're in a pandemic, but number two is the honesty. I love the honesty. And basically she's saying, Toya, shall I accept this pay rise? I understand where she's coming from because I don't know how hard, I can only assume. And let's be honest, as a black woman, I know how hard you've worked to get to the pay bracket that you're in. So then watching other people be paid how many thousands so that they're at the same pay bracket as you, it can be quite insulting because it's almost like, okay, well, fair enough, but where do I go from a financial standpoint from here? Because clearly I've put this work in, I've been here for several years, like giving them more just so they can be at the same pay grade as me is not enough for you to then just give me minimum so that the other could catch up to me. It don't make no sense. What I will say is I've never been in a situation where I've declined a pay rise, and I wouldn't suggest you do that because number one, we're in a pandemic. Number two, I've never said no to money in a pandemic. No, I'm joking. But honestly, I don't think you should decline it. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because you're going to have to explain the reason why. And I kind of feel like in a situation where you're being offered a pay rise in a commercial climate where people are losing their jobs every day, I think you just need to be a bit more grateful. And I think what it is it's the ego. And there's nothing wrong in this instance with your ego feeling a little bit bruised. But I just feel like if you decline it and explain the reasons why and don't get the response that you want, I feel like that's going to really make you contemplate whether you want to stay there. And I don't think the pay rise should be the reason why you consider leaving, especially if you know that they're not deliberately. So it's not like they're trying to put you at a disadvantage. Do you understand? Now, I think you need to negotiate your pay rise. I definitely feel like you need to ask them to justify why it's only £200. I think that's a different conversation. I feel like it's going to be on your delivery, right? So I would probably start a conversation with my boss and I'd have an informal chat. And you know what I say about informal chats? After every informal chat, you follow up with a summary email. Yes, you do, because we're all about covering your back. So I would, have an informal conversation. I know we're remote working, so maybe just put some time in the diary and call it quick catch up. So it doesn't seem like there's too much, it's just informal. And during that meeting, so say if my manager's name's Alison, hey Alison, I just wanted to have a quick catch up with you. I'm so grateful, especially in this current economic and commercial climate, that I'm even being offered a pay rise. And I do want to have a bit of a discussion with you about the pay rise and the motivations for the pay rise. So I know that my other colleagues are being paid between £2,000 to £4,000 as a pay increase. And I know that the motivation for their pay increase is to make sure that we're all level in terms of pay. But in giving me only £200, it's making me feel as though, and I say the word feel, remember, I always say take your emotions out of it. But in this instance, I would say you could say that. It makes me feel as though you want me to be in the same financial bracket. And for me, I definitely feel like I've attained XYZ, XYZ, XYZ in this role. And I want to also understand how can I get to the next level where I can reach a different financial bracket in this role. You can have that conversation. And what that will do is cause her to justify the £200. Because what does that £200 equate to? What does it involve? How did they get to the £200 figure? That's what you need to understand. Because once you understand that, it will then guide how your conversations are, or your next steps. Because your next step could be, okay, what is the next step for me in my career in this job? And you're forcing them now to think about what opportunities there are for you on a financial level, and also from a position. So, okay, we're all on the same pay. That means we're all on the same level. How do I get to the next level? How do I become a senior? And then from a financial perspective, what does that senior salary look like? And you're forcing them to enter a conversation about pay and money. And then you're having a conversation, you're negotiating effectively. And if you go on the toyatalks.com website, I have a negotiation masterclass. And this would be the ripe opportunity to maybe have a look at that masterclass to guide your discussions. Because I feel like when an organization gives you a figure, people think you just have to accept it, almost be grateful. And I think you could be grateful on one level, because it's like, okay, fine, you know, some people don't even have jobs and I'm getting a pay rise. That's great. But another way to look at it is, okay, I need to understand where this pay rise is coming from. Why wasn't I offered £2,000? How can I get £2,000? And I think you just need to change your mindset in terms of how you look at it. Now, I get where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from. But more importantly, it's about now understanding how they arrived at that £200. Because we know how they arrived at the 2,200 to 4,600 for everybody else. Because their sole motivation is to get everybody on the same level. So to get everybody on the same level doesn't mean they have to keep you at that one level. Do you understand? So I definitely think that you should open up the dialogue for some type of a conversation that will lead into a negotiation. Okay, let's move on to dilemma number 3. Hi, Toya. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to say how much your knowledge has been helping me. The podcast you did about the young lady who had been fired and complained about not receiving training, etc., really made me begin to take more responsibility for my trajectory at work instead of waiting for someone to give it to me. Today at work, in a meeting with a senior member of staff, I discussed training opportunities and was told that there are so many training courses I can go on, and they are happy to fund them and allocate time off to do it as long as I can prove its relevance and utility to my role. Had I not have prompted this question, I wouldn't have been informed of this. I plan to do some training and then use this as an avenue to negotiate a higher salary or apply for other roles. Without your knowledge or taking ownership of your career, I honestly wouldn't have done this. So thank you for all you do for us Black women. We see you and salute you. Oh, that's so sweet. Do you know what? When I received this, I didn't even read it properly. I just literally put it in my folder. So this is the first time I'm actually reading this fully. And do you know what? This is why I do the Toya Talks podcast, you know. This is the reason, because I genuinely believe that if I share my experiences, the knowledge I've acquired in my career journey, I know that there's a lot of Black women that can attain success quicker than what I did. I know that there's a lot of Black women that can find happiness in their career choices. I know that there would be a lot of Black women who can navigate the world of work safely, and in turn they light up the path of their own success. That being able to attain success would then therefore be easier. I don't want people to walk through the valley of the shadow of hot coals like I have done. So that's why I tell you, okay, this is what I did. This, even like there's episodes that I have to record about what I used to do in my 20s, my madness. Yeah, I've got to tell you guys so that you guys know, like, that's just not how to do it. Like, people look at me now and they're like, oh my God, like, you know, there was a journey before I got to this article of me. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So when I receive messages like this where Black women are listening to the podcast and it's guided them in their career, like my episode about the woman being fired from work and training and whatever, and all the other episodes has made this woman realize, actually, do you know what? I need to take charge of my career and the trajectory. And actually, I'm going to have the conversation that maybe I'm not comfortable to have. And look at it now. They basically said, yeah, we've got a training budget. We can, you know, and all I'm going to say is when an organization's offering you training, you sometimes have to sign a learning agreement, and I suggest that you just look over that learning agreement, because sometimes the learning agreement has different clauses in it. And you have to remember, when they're investing in you financially, they have to be able to recoup the money. And the way they do that is through service. So you may read in a learning agreement where they say, oh, well, if we pay for your education up until £5,000 or however much they're paying for it, then after you finish and you've acquired this qualification, you've got to stay on with us for an extra 2 years. You've got to ask yourself, okay, can I do that? Can I see myself in this place for 3 years? And that's taken into account the 2 years of service I'm going to have to do once I finish this course. You have to also think to yourself, okay, what is the penalty if I didn't pass a particular exam? Because people don't think about that. You take you should sign the learning agreement, but you're not thinking, shit, if I had to retake an exam, are they going to pay for that? And these are the things that you think about, and you factor it into your learning agreement and say, hey, I've got this learning agreement, but can I change a couple, can we negotiate one of the clauses so that if I didn't pass one of my exams, that you'll pay for a retake up until one retake or something? Do you understand? But yeah, I think listen, when an organisation say they're going to pay for your education, get it in writing, and make sure they quantify how much of they're going to pay towards it, or how much can be allocated to you. Or sometimes they say, go ahead and find a course, but you need to know how much is being allocated for you. So you know when you're looking for courses, what your budget is. Do you understand? And how they're going to pay for it. Are they going to pay it directly, or do they expect you to pay for it and then they pay you back? When is that going to happen? Is that a month after you pay? All these little things that you don't think about, but I think it's important. But I always am comforted when organisations are quite open and quite free to train people and put them on courses and stuff and development them, because it means they're investing in them. And they're, I don't know about anyone else, but I definitely feel a sense of appreciation in a way when an organisation has decided to invest in you. And, one thing with me, I'd say probably in my late 20s, I always had the notion that any investment a company would invest in me for future training or learning, I would have to have already in my bank account in case I had to pay them back because I wanted to leave that organisation but still stay on the course. But that's just me and my cynical self. And I definitely think it's important to embrace this opportunity that this organisation is giving you, but also to think about it in terms of, okay, on a practical level, how's this going to work? And make sure you read your learning agreements and your training agreements. And anything you don't understand, use your Googles, ask the organisation, or email hello@toyatalks.com, and hopefully I'll be able to help you. But I do not do one-to-one consultations. Any dilemmas that you send to me, it has to be able to benefit the wider Toya Talks audience, and therefore I have to be able to share it. Otherwise, I can't kind of respond to your dilemma. So I just don't do one-to-one consultations. I only consult for businesses. But yeah, I'm just so comforted, and I feel really happy reading that. And thank you for being so kind as to say thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, we're moving on to the final dilemma. Hi, Toya. I just wanted to start by thanking you for all you're doing for Black women. I've learned so much from navigating the workplace and also asserting my self-worth from you. I don't finish a podcast without sending it to other Black women. Seeing you and hearing you win is just so inspiring. I'm messaging because I have a dilemma that's pretty bad. It's severely affected my mental health, career, and honestly, I'm messaging because I don't know what else to do at this point and if I should do anything further. I left the company back in February. I was forced out after a year. And on the 1st of October, sent them an email requesting remuneration and an investigation laying out the discrimination that I faced but I am yet to receive a response. I've attached the letter and I sent them below. They have responded saying that they would get in touch in a few weeks, and it has been 5 weeks. I'm sorry in advance that this is so long. I just wanted to explain the situation in full so that you can have the whole picture. Essentially, when I joined the company, there were around 35 people, and I was, of course, the only Black woman. I was just out of university 6 months before. This was April 2019. In both of my interviews, I made sure to specifically ask for opportunities to progress, to which they said, of course, they would be. Within a month, I was tasked with a wellbeing initiative alongside the founder, which was a small task, but definitely outside my role. I excelled in my role with the highest response rates and one of the highest positive ratings in the responses, and wanted to apply for the lead role when it had come up. That Toya, they dragged out the application process for 3 months before telling me that I had not been successful. Of course, my manager was a racist white woman. She was uncomfortable by the fact that I was well liked in the company by the founders and wanted to make sure that I stayed the office pet. Her response when I told her I was applying was unsupportive, as you had mentioned previously experiencing roles, and to be honest, my telling her was a courtesy and to show her that I'm not here to play. I was also told from multiple colleagues that she wanted someone outside with more experience, of course. She had leaked this at a drunken evening. This same woman's work experience included working in a bar, then my job, then the lead role I was applying for, and now was managing about 15 people. In essence, her qualification was being white. Before my office interview, it turns out that the founder and my manager had taken out the other applicant from my team. Okay, so I've read this in full. And basically, she is right. You know, it sounds as though there has been some racism, some preferential treatment. She talks about kind of how other members of staff were significantly treated differently to her. There was, offered... The role that she applied for was offered to somebody else, etc., etc. She talks about... So I'm trying to give you guys a high-level overview because it's quite long. There's quite a few significant things, but one thing that kind of jumps out at me is she says, then my friend and I are on the phone call and she's talking about her pay slip. Guess what, Toya? Within the entire team, I was being paid less than my counterparts. Pay goes up after the 6-month mark, and the person 1 month after me and the people after that were given a significantly larger increase than me. I confronted them and head of HR, and they had the audacity to ask me if I could prove that what I was doing as much work or more than others. I said that I had screenshots, etc. And then this young lady then talks about her burn folder with emails. She said, anyway, the HR manager and my white manager pushed me out. They gave me an hour to think about it and wouldn't answer any questions about my rights. They offered me a lump sum and said that I would not have to come back. Anyway, thank you for so much for listening. I've sent the hard facts that I have evidence of this in an email I sent to them and attached it here and wrapped it up in sexism and racism. Do I keep pushing it? My heart says I have to, but don't know. Thank you again for everything you do for Black women. So basically what this young lady has done is she's basically suffered discrimination, racism, I would say also like elements of bullying. And after she left, then she made a formal complaint. Yeah? I think that her complaint has merit, especially the pay disparity, which tells me that there's a level of racism, or I'd say racism because she's the only Black woman. Yeah? So how can she be there longer than some people, but people are getting paid more than her, but their pay rises are significantly more than her? So the pay gap is massive now between this Black woman, who's the only Black woman in the office, and her white counterparts. So she then sends me a follow-up email. So I basically said to her, how long was you there for? What is your desired outcome? So she's now sent like a grievance complaint, if you like, after the fact. So after she's already left the company, she's working somewhere else. So then she come back to me and she says that I'm looking for an apology, remuneration for the extra work I took on. If you don't think it's achievable, that's fine. I just value your insight so much. And also, young lady says to me here that she considers me her virtual sister at work, and she's also dyslexic as well, like kind of similar to me in that she was diagnosed quite late. She also said to me that on LinkedIn, she noticed that so basically on LinkedIn, the HR manager noticed that she'd been on his page and then responded to her grievance complaint by saying that they're investigating and they're going to come back to her. Okay, so I think the problem this young lady has is you didn't make this complaint while you're still working there. You've left now. Now, it's not to say that you can't make a complaint after you've left, but it's about weight. How much weight is your complaint going to have? I mean, how long was you there? I don't think you was you wasn't even there for 2 years. You were there for a year and a bit. And I just think that I can understand why it's taken them 5 weeks to respond, because they don't consider you a priority because you've already left. And I understand it's easier to kind of make a complaint when you've already left. But this is one of the reasons I asked you, what do you want to come out of this? And you're saying that you want some form of remuneration. So you want some compensation, basically, for all the extra work you've done, this, that, and the third. But the reality is you probably are not going to get that. You're not, because there's no legal obligation that forces them to pay you out. It's not like you've been working there for 2 years and, you haven't, you could take them to employment tribunal and therefore they're thinking, shit, we don't want to go there, so we're going to settle her out of court. That's not the situation. It's not like when you say they forced you out of your job, I get that, and they did, but because you haven't been working there continuously for 2 years, you can't even claim for unfair dismissal. You can't, because you've got to qualify to go to employment tribunal, you've got to be there for 2 years, and you weren't. And I think also as well, when you're considered an ex-employee, and I think that what you should have done with that complaint is, rather than send it to HR, you should have sent it to the founder. What have you got to lose? I think even now, you still have time. Send it to the founder. But if you really want, it depends what you're looking for. Because I don't think you're going to get the compensation. I think you might get an apology, but even then you probably won't, because they don't want to admit on paper that any of your claims are substantiated. They're not going to want to do that, because then they're opening themselves to future liability if somebody else comes in as the only black person and makes the same claim and has been there for 2 years. Do you understand? No organisation, no right-thinking organisation, after somebody's left, is going to admit to being racist, victimising and bullying. They're just not going to do it. So I feel like what you're looking for, you may not find. And I think you need to understand that. But you could take it one step further if you really wanted to. And you could take it to social media, because I know the company that she's referring to, because she's shown me certain things. It's quite a known company, You could just go on social media. You could go on social media and say, this was my experience. I want an apology. As a black woman, as the only black woman in your organisation, this is what you've done to me. And we are now living in the resurgence of Black Lives Matter. My life did not matter. My mental health didn't matter. My professional life didn't matter. And I want to know what you're doing for future black people, ethnic minorities that are going to come into your organisation. What are you going to do to show that you've learned the lesson from how you've treated me? You could put it on social media if you wanted to. But I think that you are upset, you are hurt, and there's a level of trauma that these people have put you through, and you just want the acknowledgement. But this is the thing, babes. You've got to look at the bigger picture. White people, racist white people, won't even acknowledge slavery. They don't even want to talk about reparations. And you want them to admit to racially discriminating, bullying, victimization towards you? Babes, I don't think they will. And this is something I want to talk about in another future episode, about trauma and workplace trauma, and how we as black women have to deal with workplace trauma in other workplaces. And it's almost like we're building a suitcase of trauma. And all that does is build up anxiety, frustration, and anger. And as black women, we have to find a way to work through that. We do. Like, when I think about my working life, I've been through hell, as many of us have. How many of us, raise your hands, have walked in to an office, just been treated like shit, and walked into the female toilets and just had a cry? I have. several times, or made to feel so stupid and literally you just want the floor to swallow you up, or feeling completely humiliated when you have been sidelined for a job that you're probably been earmarked for, or somebody's been in the organisation for 1 week and they've already taken them out to lunch and they're whining and dining, intro emails, but when you started, no one even acknowledged you existed. All of those experiences form part of workplace trauma. And I definitely think it's something that we need to talk about. I'm going to talk about it in an episode. Definitely workplace trauma. It's so important. I never realised that the biggest bullies that I would face would be in the workplace. And in the workplace, there are different levers because you know you need to get paid to pay your bills. And then you almost feel like you are mentally enslaved to these organisations because you're in debt or you've got bills to pay or you're just so desperate just to have a job. There's trauma associated with that. And I think that it's important for you to say how you felt in your experiences of that workplace. And I read the attachment of the letter that you sent to the organisation. Very, very well written. Very well written. I was so impressed. I read it. I was like, that is how you construct a complaint. But babes, you know what it's like? It's like a football match. You've arrived on the pitch after they've finished their 90 minutes, baby. You've arrived in your full football kit to play football, but they're finished playing. That's kind of what's happened here. You've left the organisation and then you come back and say, hey, I've got a complaint. And it just doesn't work like that. And sometimes you have to, if you're going to make a complaint, you have to be in the fire almost. It's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. But I think what you're looking for is an apology. I don't even think you want the money, you know. I don't even think it's the money. I think the money is just the bonus or the padding. I think you want someone to acknowledge what you went through. And I think that would be from the founder. In your complaint, you talk about the relationship that you had with him in terms of the extra work that you were doing. You know, you had a good relationship with the founder. He knew who you was. He really respected your work. Then you need to leverage that relationship. And you need to say to him, this is how I felt and I need this. I need you to acknowledge this. And I think you need to take the angle of a black woman who has gone through this, and you need an acknowledgement from them that not only did you go through this, but you need to understand what they're going to put in place for other black people. And you know what, darling? They may not even respond. They may not even respond. But I think that you need to put pen to paper. And you've done it anyway, but I think you need to be able, you need the acknowledgement. But one thing I'm going to tell you is about the white construct of the workplace. They don't owe us anything as black women, as black people. They just don't owe us anything. We have to take what we're owed. We have to go in, show up and show out. And the part of the showing up and showing out is being the subject matter expert, being confident in who you are, developing in these organizations and making sure that you are kind of almost like a single point of failure. In all what organizations I've been to, I'm always a single point of failure. So that already gives me leverage. And you have to be strategic in these organizations. When I read this young woman's dilemma, I genuinely got the impression that not only did she enjoy her job, but she really, in her head, she wanted these people to see that I'm going to develop here. You know, she said, I wanted them to know I didn't come here to play. Well, darling, they knew you didn't come here to play. But they just took the piss. And they took the piss because you're the only black person. And that's the reality. It's your word against theirs. And it's so sad. It's a sad state of affairs. But this is what is some of our experiences. There's many of us that have been the only black person in an organisation. I know I definitely have. And knowing what I know now, I would have managed it a lot differently. I would have called bullshit a lot quicker. You know, I wouldn't have been so depressed and so dreading to go to work. You know that knot you feel at the bottom of your stomach? I had that in a couple of roles. Rather than deal with the issue, I would be off sick. I would get signed off. I'd look for other jobs and then leave. But I really liked the job. I just didn't like the environment and the people. And it takes a certain courage to also put that pen to paper, whether you're in the organisation or not. So I definitely want you to give yourself some credit for having the courage to put pen to paper. But I think that you also need to understand that there is no obligation on them to even acknowledge or come back to you. And that's why it's taken them for so long. It has. That's the reason. So hopefully kind of what I've said has helped. I definitely am understanding from this dilemma that I definitely need to talk about workplace trauma, and maybe even talk about some of the workplace trauma that I haven't spoken about before, and how I've worked my way through them, especially throughout my career to where I am now. Because I feel like we still go, like, even when I was telling you earlier on in the episode where the director called me and said, you know, I was being accused basically of launching into someone. I'm going to be honest, in that moment, I was really upset that she even would check whether I did launch. Like, why would you check? Like, it doesn't even, like, what is it about me that makes you check? And it's because I'm a black woman. Because if I was a white woman, you wouldn't feel the need to check. But the reason you're checking is because my demeanor, my personality is quite reserved and quiet. But I am a black woman. So that is the check that you have to make. Because my demeanor is different from your stereotype. That is a form of trauma. It is a form of trauma, because now I'm thinking, shit, so if I send an email to somebody's going to just assume I'm going to launch into them. I've launched into them. That level of white fragility is what I cannot fucking handle. I can't handle it. So that means I'm going to have to put my big size 9s, well, I'm actually a size 7, and be very direct, because that has to now be the status quo. That tool is quite direct. Whereas up until recently, I've just not had to be direct because I've just been observing. But yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into another episode. But listen, the redundancy masterclass, I know a lot of you are waiting on it. It has been scoped out. I've started filming it already, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll finish filming it this week and it will go up live on the toyatalks.com website. I've had so many emails and so many messages in my DMs and on Snapchat about the redundancy masterclass. So I know you guys are going to love it. But I've had to check all the legislation as well, especially with COVID. I needed to make sure that certain legislation hadn't changed. One of my really, really good friends is an employment lawyer, and there was an aspect of the redundancy that was really ambiguous, the legislation. So I said, this is what I think, what's your view? And she said, yeah, it is. And I actually had to pay her for that consultation. That's how much I really believe in my masterclasses. I'm willing to pay to check legislation so that I can make sure I'm communicating the right information to you guys. I've had to advise a company on collective redundancies, and collective redundancies are if there's 20 or more employees during a 90-day period, it's considered a collective redundancy, and I've had to advise on it. So that was quite interesting as well. And also, you know, it enables me to add that information into the redundancy masterclass when it becomes live on the Toya Talks website. If you guys want to, you know, watch or listen to any of the masterclasses that I have the CV masterclass, I have the interview masterclass, the negotiation masterclass. I also have the mother and daughter masterclass. So I definitely know there's something for everybody. And I know you guys stay waiting on the redundancy masterclass, which is coming, I promise. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for recommending the Toya Talks podcast. I know that there are things on social media where people's like, oh, what podcasts are there to listen to? And you guys always pop up and really put forward the Toya Talks podcast. And I really, really appreciate that. You guys know I pour my heart and my soul into the Toya Talks platform. And I love the Toya Talks podcast. And I'm realizing that Toya Talks podcast is like my therapy. It is like my therapy, because I get to talk about all my work experiences and the decisions I've made to help you guys. And in turn, I've been able to work through some of the things that I went through in my early 20s and in my working life that has gotten me to this point. So yeah, I definitely am enjoying it. You guys know I've got a bit of a surprise in December in the Toya Talks podcast. You also know in December I'm going on a bit of a break as well. But I've got a couple of surprises that I know that you guys are going to really love. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to encourage you to share the Toya Talks podcast as much as possible. You are fabulous, amazing Black queens. And we are on this journey together as we navigate the world of work, and I will continue to share my experiences and my learning lessons so that you guys can be more successful than me, because that is what I want. I want you guys to be able to use everything and utilize all this information and this knowledge to really be able to navigate the world of work successfully and continuously, and continue to light up the path of your success. I also want to tell you guys, I'm on social media. If you don't know already, Instagram, my personal Instagram is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks Instagram page is Toya_Talks. Twitter, it's Toya_W. If you have a workplace dilemma and you want us to discuss it here on the Toya Talks podcast, you want me to give you some advice that you will benefit and be able to utilize, then definitely email me, hello@toyatalks.com. I am now closing this week's episode of the Toya Talks podcast. You know we have a new episode each and every Tuesday. I've really enjoyed delivering this podcast to you. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the Toya Talks podcast. I read all your reviews and all your ratings, and I really appreciate it. I want to say big up to my listeners in Ireland. We charted top 20 in the Irish podcast charts, and I'm so proud of that. In the UK, we charted last week. I think the highest was number 34, which is amazing. And I'm charting in Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa. Where else am I charting? And in the United States, which is amazing. So we're going global, baby. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. My name is Toya Washington, and you guys have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.